Welcome to Tech Leaders Today with your host, Cassie Crossley. All comments, views, and opinions expressed on this show are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers. Now here's Cassie Crossley.
Hello and welcome to Tech Leaders Today. I'm here with Dr. Anthony Deese, Ph.D. He's the founder and CEO of VerapoTech, a firm developing innovative mobile application software for the Internet of Things. He is also an associate professor of electrical and computer engineering at the College of New Jersey, and his primary field of study is smart power grid technologies with focus on the Internet of Things. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you very much for having me on.
I was very interested in the Internet of Things, and when we met on Twitter, I asked for you to join because I wanted to hear more about what is happening in that industry. It's such a new industry. I do say it's new, although we have been doing Internet of Things for a lot longer than I think most people realize. How are you finding the talent that you need, the engineers and the developers, to create a firm specializing on the Internet of Things?
Well, the first thing about Internet Things is it's a very interesting industry that's developing very quickly. And I feel like right now there are so many interconnected devices, but they're not necessarily interconnected in the smartest way. And so I think that the evolution that's going to be happening, hopefully over the next year or a couple of years or so, is going to be a movement away from, simply your fridge talks to your stove, but looking towards more intelligent, more innovative. When we're looking for engineers and those with computer science background to work with us, we're looking for people that have that sort of innovative mindset and can see the future of what Internet of Things is going to be. I mean, that being said, we have found a lot of people that work with us through my colleagues and looking at new graduates from a lot of institutions in the area. I live in Philadelphia and in southern New Jersey. And we've also been working with a lot of firms that are based overseas. Actually, Twitter has been a great way to get in touch with those firms. Through our Twitter handle, we essentially put up a couple posts saying that we were looking for partners to work with us to help us out with some development work, and we got a lot of responses. Several were from overseas firms, and we had set up some Skype calls and went from there, and it's been very easy. I mean, I think the great thing about IoT, at least on the software side, is that a combination of telecommunications, so Skype conversations, sending different modules and files back and forth, it's been a very effective and a very, pleasant would be the word that I would use process. It's worked very well.
What about the engineering side? Are you focused only on the software? Tell us more about VerapoTech.
So we are primarily focused on the software end. Originally, the company was dealing more with home automation solutions. We were doing hardware and software. We were essentially developing some sensors to detect whether people were in different rooms and then actuate devices, turn lights on and off, et cetera. But, from looking at the market and seeing what other devices were already out there, we saw that it might be prudent to focus on the software end. Because the thing about developing a hardware and a software system is that you're kind of pigeonholing yourself to home automation. By really trying to flesh out the software idea and make a kit, make a development tool that a lot of companies can use, I felt that it was giving us a larger market, because now we can offer our software to those working in healthcare, which is a major area within IoT, home automation, wearables. I mean, I think that the possibilities are much wider. As opposed to going from beginning to end, software and hardware, we're really trying to make a robust software package that will work for a wide variety of different Internet of Things devices by allowing seamless integration between mobile applications, cloud services, cloud databases, and then the Wi-Fi, IoT devices themselves. And those three pieces, in my mind, are really the key to a successful IoT device. Not only that you have them, but that interaction and that integration is seamless. They communicate flawlessly with one another.
When you are looking for people for your staff or to work with, are you looking for computer science majors? What's the background? Because IoT may not be something on everybody's resume yet.
Computer science majors definitely are a huge chunk of the partners that we work with in terms of, those that are helping us out with the coding. The one thing I think that makes IoT a little bit different is that there is a pretty significant hardware portion, whether you're working with the hardware or not. And what I mean by that is a lot of our software is, a lot of the modules within it are tasked with interacting with specific hardware modules. Developing code, if you don't have any sort of understanding, and I'm sure that most computer scientists understand digital versus analog, input versus output, but some terms such as pulse width modulation, computer scientists may not understand. So I think, we've been using a mix of computer scientists and computer engineers. In my mind, computer engineers provide us really the best mix of skills because they have very strong programming skills and also their understanding of hardware is very good. But really, it's been a mixture. Some of the interior modules that are more isolated from the hardware, we've been relying predominantly on computer science majors.
Is the field getting more competitive? Are you having difficulty retaining?
Yes, the field is definitely getting more competitive, especially being a smaller company. It's difficult to attract good talent because most students that are graduating are, their goal is to work for a huge Google or an Apple, et cetera. And, I don't argue with that point in a general sense, but I think there are a lot of opportunities to work that are associated with working with smaller companies. Number one is growth. If you come in at the ground level on a company, you have the opportunity to grow with that company. And also the level of work. I'm sure that the work that they do, engineers and computer scientists do at Google is very in-depth work. But when you're working for a smaller company, you're developing a device from the ground up. So that's what I try to use in my pitch to potential, contractors or employees is to talk to them about the differences between large and smaller firms and a lot of the advantages that we can offer.
On the topic of technology now, you put out an SDK. Can you talk more about where you're headed with VerapoTech?
Of course. The SDK is our primary product. It's aimed at startups or small companies that are developing, like I've said before, Internet of Things technologies. And the way I look at it is it's sort of like a toolbox. So you have, for example, the hardware for a remote-controlled door lock. And perhaps you're running the door lock, you're controlling it using your laptop, some sort of script that you're running on there. But that's not something that you can sell to customers. For customers, in order to commercialize the product, you're going to need a mobile application. You're going to need a well-accepted cloud service provider. I've used a lot of the terms before. But so we provide a toolbox that allows these clients to come in and say, okay, I need this, I need this, I need this. They pick out the pieces, combine them together to make a mobile application that works for their purposes. And then essentially it's ready for commercialization. With a slight amount of adaptation, you can go from having nothing to having a fully working mobile application that interacts with your hardware and that is ready to be placed on, whether it's the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and can accompany your hardware, which I think in a lot of cases is half the battle. Hardware development is definitely an important aspect of IoT, but, the communication software side can often be just as much of a burden in terms of development time and effort.
The SDK that you've put together, what kind of controls do you have on security?
We're really relying on a lot of the security that's embedded within the services that we use, which is nice because those are, developed by a lot of large companies. For example, we've been relying predominantly on the Firebase cloud service provider, which is developed by Google. So they have their own built-in software protocols that they use. Essentially, our SDK uses some functions that they offer or they provide to the public. And then the hardware that we use, the particle photon, also has some built-in security protocols that are associated with the communication. I think that one great aspect of the SDK that we're distributing is that we, I think for better, have not had to develop our own security system. Okay, we've been relying or piggybacking off of those that have been proven to work and have been offered by other companies.
Do you have some examples where people have started to use the SDK? Any case studies?
Right now, we are still in the development stage. The SDK is available. We've distributed to some small groups, let's say some startups that are coming out of universities that, a lot of them don't even really have a name yet. But we're using them as our beta testers. They've sent me some of the work that they've done. They've been able to put together some very cool products, and they've said nothing but good things about our SDK. I think it's helped them out a lot. but we'd like to use them to get a little bit higher level of refinement before we move on to a wider distribution of the SDK. That being said, if there are any listeners out there that have a product idea and would like to potentially partner with us, we would love to talk to you. And, again, we have our website and Twitter handle, which we'll mention all that stuff at the end.
Talk more about the strengths and the advantages in your future plans for the SDK.
Well, I think that our long-term goal is to provide an option to smaller companies working in IoT. The way I look at it is, and not to keep going back to this door lock example, but if you're a small company that's trying to develop this Internet of Things remote door lock, there are not many options for you in terms of commercializing your product. You have the huge firms, your Google, your Apple, your Belkin, and they have their partners. And they essentially share their software and protocols with one another. But if you're not in that group, it can be very difficult to penetrate the market because compatibility with their products is something that a lot of customers are going to be looking for. And also, again, just the sheer number of areas that someone developing an IoT product has to be, good in: hardware development, software development, networking. The way I see it is us providing an option that allows these smaller companies to enter the market quickly, and I think with a reliable, well-working product. And one that also provides the ability to communicate with those existing technologies. So, for example, one of the reasons why we chose Google Firebase, our cloud service provider, is because that is the one which allows us to communicate with the Google Nest. Products that are developed on our platform can communicate with a Google Nest thermostat through the Firebase cloud platform and can acquire data from it as well as make changes, assuming you have the proper permissions. The user has to give you permission, but you can change the temperature, the set temperature for the Google Nest thermostat. I see it as a tool that will really open up the market and allow a lot of smaller companies that perhaps have hit some stumbling blocks on the software end. It would allow those companies to move forward. And this is where I think new and exciting ideas comes into play. Because Google, Apple, Belkin, they have done a lot of great things. But there's a lot of repetition in terms of controllable lights and controllable power switches. I think that there's room for some real intelligent learning type of Internet of Things technologies, and we haven't really seen that yet. I'm hopeful, I'm very confident that our software tool will go out there and penetrate some companies that have these really great, intelligent, smart IoT ideas and help them come to market.
That's great. Well, how do people find out more about your company and the software development kit?
Well, the best way is to go to our website, which is www.verapotech, and I'll spell that out. So VERAPOTECH.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. We try to put up a lot of cool videos and posts as we're testing the software and the hardware that we're using to test our software. And then our Twitter handle is our name, so at VerapoTech, same spelling as website. Feel free to message us, PM us on Twitter, or follow us, or post us with any cool ideas that you think might make our product better, or any partnerships that you think might potentially exist. We would really love to hear from any of your listeners.
Thank you so much for being with me today, Anthony.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for having me on. It's been very interesting.
I want to thank you so much for listening today. If you love this podcast, please do share it with your friends and colleagues. And please leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher because it makes a difference for circulation. For the show notes and other great info, enter your email into the mailing list at techleaderstoday.com. Thank you.